Do 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 do. Hello, this is Benjamin Boyce, and it is August the 29th, which is a Thursday. I've had a couple days of in-service training for my day job that's starting up again, starting next week, and things are switching up with my schedule and stuff, and we'll see how that goes. A little bit wary about it because there's some quizzical aspects to this new schedule that I'm going to be on. So we'll see how it happens. I really do hope it shakes out well for me and the people I work for. We'll see, though, because this other gig of mine isn't quite setting me up to pay fully for my lifestyle. Well, at least the insurance in my other job is really, really well. So while I still, do this fledgling filmmaker thing, I still need to have interaction with the real world, which is actually really grounding and actually helps me when I think about, those Voice of Reason 10-minute videos that I should be doing, to drive viewership and audience engagement about the current topic of the day. It's always nice when you're thinking about politics to actually interact with people who don't think about politics all the time, for a number of different reasons. One, it just kind of takes you out of that asinine, crazy mindset that everybody, right, left, center, gets in when they think about that stuff, talk about this stuff all the time. Even if they're, making bank off of it, I think it really tugs you and pulls you apart. And so it's good for me to have something that grounds me outside of this virtual landscape, which we are shuffling our thoughts back and forth between one another. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Somebody wrote about my series or something. Some blogger or journalist wrote about me, and they call me filmmaker Benjamin Boyce, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of different titles that you get in your life, and there's few titles that you really enjoy having. I was a practicing poet for a really long time, but I hated to call myself a poet. I hated to call myself a writer, even though I wrote 4 or 5 hours a day. I hated calling myself a writer because I never published. But I always thought that was really pretentious. It reminds me of I had this friend back in the days when I should have been going to college instead of, just writing and working in cafes. But I had this friend who had idolized the Harley Davidson motorcycle. And he said that he would never be worthy to drive one of these motorcycles. And I always thought it was kind of, ridiculous that, it's just an object. If you want the object, there's no reason why you can't have and participate in that object. Actually, the object in and of itself loves when you use it. Loves when you use it. Loves to be used. A Harley Davidson, I'm pretty certain, loves when people ride it. It doesn't have any qualms about who's riding it. It just loves to be driven. That's how it's built. That's how it's designed. So I always thought that was kind of weird that he thought that he wouldn't be worthy of driving a Harley Davidson because he had this image in his mind of what the correct person to be driving that motorcycle was. Well, I always had that image of what is this rider thing? And I could never live up to that image. When I was in Paris a few years back during my Evergreen days, one of my courses, probably the most rounded out course that I took there, was about France in the 19th century. And for the last quarter, we went out to France, and we went to this, there's this Shakespeare and Company. There's this publisher on that crazy river that they have that I don't want to say because I know I can't really remember definitely what that river is, where that burnt down old building is now. Well, there's this place over right by that burnt down old building called Shakespeare Company, which was the first place to publish James Joyce's Ulysses. And James Joyce Ulysses, that was the novel I could not publish. I refused to even submit myself until I had achieved James Joyce's Ulysses, married with Tolkien's, Lord of the Rings, thing. That was my image in my head of what a writer was. So it was completely unattainable for me. But at that place, at that very little, bookstore, with this pretentious, history or whatever, not pretentious, but this really rich literary history. There was this kid there, probably in his early 20s, and he was sitting there with his journal, and he was writing in his journal, and he had his ascot on. Ascot is a scarf for men who think they're more important than men who wear scarves wear. And he was staring off into the distance, and I was looking at him, oh my God, that kid's trying to be a writer. Like, that is exactly what I didn't want it to be when I thought, like, am I a writer? Am I not a writer? Am I a writer? Am I not a writer? Like, how do I introduce myself? Like, I can't be a writer because, like, then everybody will see that kid. Everybody will see that kid staring off in the distance with a little journal, you know, like sipping his like cafe, like next to this bookstore of ultimate pretentious, you know, qualities there. And I never wanted to be attributed to that. And so, not that I gave up on writing, but I pretty much, you know, like set that aside when I started doing this work, because this work right here that I'm doing with you, making all these videos, actually, that's what I'd like to talk about. If anybody has any questions about the Evergreen Documentary, please put 3 question marks in front of your little typey thing, so I'll know that this is a question about the Evergreen Documentary, and then we can talk about that if you guys want to talk about that. But when I started doing this work, like, I didn't have time to write at all anymore. Like, I still pluck around once a year. I'll pick one book that I've written and I'll slowly go through it, see how far I can get with it, and then I'll put it down and go back to it again. Because again, I have this whole stupid-ass Ulysses Tolkien Lord of the Rings thing that I have to surmount before I can ever actually, like, be satisfied with my work, which is impossible, stupid. I'll get over it. Anyways, somebody called me a filmmaker. I'm like, you know what? I have absolutely no pretensions to be a filmmaker. Like, that has never been something that I've aspired to. It's just something that I fell into doing. That's what I do. And actually, now that I'm doing it and I have the, like, basic rudimentary skills to do it, I'm fine. Yeah, Benjamin Boyce, filmmaker. That's fine. I'm doing a 24-episode documentary about my alma mater. 24 episodes, which is the length of a TV series back in the old days before, you know, Netflix and HBO came through and revolutionized TV making. You know, 24 episodes. That's like a solid undertaking. Like, that is a film. I mean, they're 20 minutes each, you know, which is about the length of an Office episode, you know, like one season Office episode, self-produced, one man, plenty of mistakes. Every once in a while, I'll have to re-upload something because I'll put something out there that I shouldn't, or, you know, I think better of. But, you know, we'll get through this. We'll get through this, you and I. Thanks you for your support, not just the financial stuff that does help out, but just you guys being here, speaking with me, urging me along, having these little mini discussions. I am giving up beer for a year. I'm into these Martini things, which are pretty wonderful. I like a little extra vermouth in mine. It's pretty nice. Okay. So now I'm gonna, like, that was my opening. So now I'm gonna, like, check out these questions. If anybody has any questions specifically about the Evergreen State documentary, no, the complete Evergreen Story documentary, the Omnia Extraris documentary that I'm producing, that I am about 1/3 of the way through. We've gotten through one full day of protests. That's how exhausted I'm being. Go ahead and ask away. So I'm going to go through here. 3 question marks at the beginning of your comment, and I will ask as long as it's about the Evergreen State College. But before I do that, just before the first Evergreen State College question, somebody named White Rat, cool name, cool little photo too, as well, also asks, do you participate in NaNoWriMo? NaNoWriMo. There was a 3-day novel writing contest that I participated in 2003. It's really confusing. Like, you do 2012, 2013, but you can't do 2009. You know, so that it hitches me up. So anyways, in 2003, I did this 3-day novel writing contest, which actually led me toward writing this book, which is my final book, which is my Ulysses, House of Leaves, you know, that book. But no, by the time NaNoWriMo got off the ground, I was already writing 4 or 5 hours a day. So I didn't, like, there was no way to fit NaNoWriMo into my schedule. I was already writing about a novel a year, probably a novel and a half, because I would always do fun projects in the summer. Anyway, so the first Evergreen State College question is, can we get your personal opinion of Naima Lowe? Now, in 2 episodes, okay, so I plan out these episodes, but then once I actually start making the episode, like, the ideas, it all just forms itself. Like, the episode forms itself. Like, I'm trying to do this chronology thing, like, just do it chronology wise with the protests. Okay, so let's just talk about structure. So there's 4 days of protests May 23rd, 24th, 25th, and 26th, right? Those are the main story. Then there's stuff that happens after the protest. There's this bat mob, then the Patriot Prayer shows up to campus, and then the whole fallout, right? But before those protests was all the stuff that led up to the protests that the students were doing, and all the stuff that led up to the protests that the administration and the faculty were doing, right? So what I'm doing, and you know what, I'm totally open to being critiqued about this. When I'm done with it, we'll see if it works or not. What I'm doing is just like trying to tell the 4 days of protests sequentially and jumping back and forth between what happened back then, and then kind of every once in a while I'll see something that's happening right now that I think just absolutely speaks to or is replying to, or you know, something outside of the Evergreen story, like that whole New York Times 1619 thing that they're doing, where they want to reinvent what America is and found it completely on slavery, which is a horrible idea, but something that like an Evergreen grad would come up with and then try to implement and force everybody to believe, which is the same exact thing that the New York Times is doing, is what Evergreen tried to do, you know, rewrite history around oppression. It's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. So I threw that in there because I thought it was totally relevant. And it says that this documentary that was about a very small liberal arts college that was already struggling to begin with 2 years ago, this little story is still relevant today. So anyways, I'm kind of rapping, and there's a lot of, that jazz thing where you improvise. Like I'm doing a lot of improvisation because I just have all this stuff in my head. So I'm just associating and trying to put it together and then trying to fine tune the episode and then put it out, you know. So it's like this really interesting production schedule where I just like, I kind of know what I have to get through. So I know what I'm going to try to get through with the next episode. And then after that episode, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be doing the Naima Lowe episode. I have enough footage and just raw material just to present her in her own words, right? Now, Christopher has asked me what was my personal opinion on Naima Lowe. I think that there's a lot of misguidedness in her. There's a lot of anger in her. There's a lot of privilege, and she's not privilege. What's that word? Shoot. Entitlement. There's a lot of entitlement in her. She's adopted some of the worst ideas in history, which are probably some of the oldest ideas in history, which is just me, mine. I am the center of the universe. Mom and dad love me, so I can do whatever the hell I want. She is a nest of really bad ideas. I really think that she has redeemable qualities, and I think that as a human being, hopefully she can work through her negative issues, because I think it causes her more pain that she always blames on everybody else. Now, when we get into the footage, I have plenty of footage of her just blaming everybody else for her problems. She blames the college that it's in the woods, and she has to walk through the parking lot to get to her classroom, which is inaccessible to her, which is unacceptable to her. Why did you take a job at a college in the forest if you don't like walking? You know, because she gets to be there and then bitch about it, and then everybody crowds around her. So the whole system that she's erected around herself is to surround herself by people who only ever agree with her, who allow her to participate in very bullying behaviors. And now I've heard it from somebody who was in a planning team with her. I've heard it from people who worked with her in a college capacity, where they would go to these planning unit meetings with her, and she would just say the most outrageous thing, and everybody would nod along. And this one person who was new there didn't want to speak up, because when you're new in this kind of job, you have to be careful, right? But then this person would ask why everybody let Naima get away with that stuff. And everybody's like, well, yeah, it's just her. And like, that's just her thing. Now, this is secondhand. This person told me that. I'm probably misrepresenting the story, but what it does add to is my conception that I saw of her is that everybody just like bows down to her and works around her, and just like, she's like the queen bee, the whole thing, which was absolutely the worst thing that everybody in her life could have done for her. The worst thing that everybody could have done for her was to agree with her, and was to protect her from being challenged. And furthermore, go after people who challenged her. That was the worst possible thing, because when the challenge finally came, when she was standing on Red Square, bitching out a couple of professors, as a media professor, completely ignorant that she was being recorded. I'm sorry, that one, I can't get around. She's a media professor, quote unquote. She doesn't understand that there are cameras on her and how she's going to be perceived. Or maybe she does, and that's what she wants, because when she gets that inevitable hate mail from a bunch of like people that are probably either really enraged themselves or assholes themselves on the internet, send her like bad photos from history of like, from 1619 history, and accuse her or like, threaten her, when she finally gets all that hate, she gets to stand up and say, see, I knew white people were bad. I knew white people hated me and were racist the whole time. They were just smiling at me and letting me do but I knew the whole time. And then everybody would have to bow down to her. Oh my God, you got hate mail. Oh my God, you got hate mail. Completely ignoring this is her colleagues. These are professors. I'm sorry. If any Evergreen College professors that I'm critiquing right now are watching, I'm sorry that I'm saying this. But even at that point, they stood up for her and they challenged the administration. Like, we have to protect Naima Lowe. No, she put hate into the world. You can't get away from that. Like, you can't say that I am the one who gets to hate. And that's exactly what she's saying in so many words. That I am the one who gets to be bigoted. I am the one who gets to hate. Everybody else has to love. How is anybody else going to know how to love somebody who hates them? I don't know. You're just going to bow down. So those are some of my true personal thoughts about Naima Lowe. And I really do hope that eventually she recognizes the position that she puts herself in with her beliefs, with her belief system, with her attitude. I really hope that, because that's what destroys people. Being that filled with hate, that's what destroys you. You destroy yourself. It's not the patriarchy. It's not white supremacy and whatever freaking guise you're going to put it in nowadays. It's you yourself that's going to destroy you. Now, I do want to say that there are dangerous people who march under the banner of white supremacy and stuff, and those people are absolute assholes, and we have law systems to put those people away. And I'm not agreeing with those people at all. I'm just saying that going around saying that everything's white supremacist is going to destroy you in the end, because it's going to make you unable and everybody else around you unable to tell between what is true bigotry, true dangerous bigotry that you need to watch out for, and people who you just want to be your allies and you're going to try to bully into being your allies. Anyways, all those thoughts will be left out of the documentary until maybe the end, when I do like episode 23, 24, and I do a self-evaluation. This project that I'm doing, the complete Evergreen story, will be basically an Evergreen project. This is going to prove to the world what the value of an Evergreen education is. This is an independent learning contract. I've done this completely by myself. I've had some resources. I've had some help with people in the comments. I've had guidance from people in the comments and people that I met. And then these thinkers that I meet and speak with and all these different interviews. So I've gone out and I've gotten a lot of guidance, a lot of resources and stuff like that. But this is the promise of an Evergreen education, is that an individual can produce something completely balls to the wall, thorough, right? So at the end of every Evergreen program, whether it's self-designed or you sign up for it, you get a faculty evaluation, which I'm going to try to find an Evergreen faculty to give me an evaluation, or several Evergreen faculty to give me an evaluation on my work, and you do a self-evaluation. And so I will go through and then I'll talk about how I built the thing, which might be meta. I'll try to keep it actually informative, and not too like sniffing my own butt or whiffing my own farts or anything like that. Like, no, I want it like a rigorous self-evaluation. What was I trying to do? Did I accomplish it? So I will try to leave my personal stuff out of it, though there are instances in this story where I do appear in the story. There's already footage in the story of me in the story, so I'm completely entangled, like Schrodinger's butt crack, into this whole endeavor. So anyways, that was my I did a first question, so we'll go on to another question. Again, okay, so we'll just do these in order. If you do want to ask a question about the Evergreen State College documentary that I'm doing, go ahead and do 3 question marks before your comment. If it is about the Evergreen State College documentary that I'm doing, I'll answer it. I'll try to get to there. I might have to go and get another martini, but right now I'm going to sip it because it's really delicious. And I'm sorry, these olives, I know, see, are orange, but they're actually green. But because behind me is a green screen, it's greening out the olives. Matt Pitt asks, have you experienced any sort of harassment since criticizing the events that happened at Evergreen? Nothing that I would construe as harassment. When I first started the YouTube gig, I got a lot of like asshole YouTubers. And they've kind of gone away. I think I've bored the hell out of them. They've left me alone to do my work, more or less. And every once in a while, I get triggered. I do get triggered. Somebody said that I need to leave the humor out of my products with my last video, and I got triggered. And then a bunch of other people agreed with them, so I'm like, okay, we'll take out the freaking Batman thing. The Batman phone call with the face of George Bridges, that was too far. I get it, that was too far. And then with the uploaded version, I didn't take anything else. Well, I didn't took out the Star Spangled Banner when the students, like, all of a sudden she starts praising the veterans. Like, what the fuck? You go around screaming at the police, accusing every authority figure of having it out to get you and not doing anything to serve you. And then you're like, oh, a marginalized veteran. And then she just starts going on this like patriotic rant out of nowhere. Like, I really love the performance. That one girl, I don't know her name. I haven't been able to find her. I wouldn't publish her name anyways. She'd get a lot of hate. She was doing that since 9:30 in the morning. I mean, that is pretty astounding that somebody could be like, just like going full throttle. I'm going to yell at professors and teachers and police officers all day from like 9:30 to like 7 in the evening, 7:30 in the evening. That's 10 freaking hours of protest. No wonder she's a little hangry. So she's just like, but she's just going at it. It's like a veteran. A marginalized veteran, you know, like summoning like all the patriotism. Everybody hates freaking America. You go to Evergreen, you learn that America's built on slavery, right? The same thing that the New York Times is trying to teach everybody, right? But all of a sudden she sees her chance to like browbeat the administration by calling out like the veteran status of an individual. Anyway, so I put like the Star Spangled Banner behind that, and I took that out. You know, because people wanted a version that they could share with friends, or professionals or whatever. So that I could have just reduced it to very background, but I didn't. So I'm kind of sad to lose that one. The Batman one was going overboard. And then I replaced the Batman one with actual data to show exactly how ridiculous she's being by asking for a military escort for them to walk 450 feet. When the military is actually, I mispronounced it. I said 34 minutes, 34 miles. It's actually 34 minutes or 26 miles away. I'm sorry, I'm rambling so much. I have not done any video making since I started doing all this video making. I mean, I haven't like really been in the front of a camera since then. So I have all this backed up energy, all this camera juice going on because the documentary stuff's kind of intense. You're like, cut. Where's that footage? Cut. So Matt Pitt asked if I had seen any sort of harassment since criticizing the events that happened at Evergreen. I've gotten some like passive aggressive comments by professors on Facebook, and I've come across some emails of them. They just bitch about me. It's just bitching. There's no actual harassment. When I'm out in Olympia, I do get a little nervous. But I've only ever been approached by people who appreciate what I'm doing. But I'm still like nervous. Like people are going to see me. Every once in a while I'll see George Bridges and we kind of avoid each other, which is lame. On my account, I should go up and like shake his hand and say, "Hey, George," because I heard some really good reviews about him as a teacher. It's just the administrator thing that he absolutely sucks ass at. That's a personal opinion that won't be shown in the documentary. And that's another reason why I took out the little mocking of George Bridges. Like, I got to keep that stuff out because people, like, if the legislator finally freaking pays attention to what's happening at the state school, this is a primary document for them to make a decision about replacing the guy who drove it into the ground, and hopefully selecting somebody who will defend it against the people who have completely ruined it. Like, who else? Which one of those protesters would have done something like I'm doing? Like Evergreen's a place where you can go and you can learn the skills to do something like I'm doing right now, making this like really exhaustive documentary. And Naima Lowe, as my teacher, would have never been able to teach me this. She would have never even looked me in the eye as a white man. She didn't. And I worked with her. She refused to look me in the eye because of my race and sex. It probably my ambiguously heterosexual sexuality, like that's a person that's not going to like help me like learn the skills. Anyways, I need to stop bitching. I need to be professional. We're live TV. I'm trying to be professional here. Let's go on to the next question. Mm. Garamen Vermin. Question. Any plans on compiling the documentary into one piece? I think it should be seen by more people that might help. When I'm done with all 24 episodes, I think that they will be redone in 1 hour long episodes. And that's going to be kind of annoying for my YouTube fan base to like see these reposts, I guess. But I guess it's up for them to just ignore that. But if I do 1 hour episodes, they're about 20 minutes each. That means like 3 episodes. And that would be like 8 hours of stuff, roughly speaking. Which is still too long. So ultimately, it's Mike Naina's documentary, and there are a couple of other documentaries that are coming out about the Evergreen State College that will be like the story to tell the newbies. Like my stuff is specifically for people who want to know the whole thing, and then researchers that want to get a map on all the data that eventually I will be publishing. Like all my primary sources, I will eventually publish all those. So mine is the next step. So to even go from 24 to 8, it might be better, but it's still way too much. So, I mean, there's infinite game. If I put them all together, like how many hours is that? That's 8 hours. Like a single 8-hour documentary. Like who's going to click on that in YouTube? I mean, it'd be cool to have there, like, look at this 50 gig file that crushed my Comcast allotment of data for the month, like here we are, guys. So we'll see about doing that. But I do want to put them into 1 hour episodes, and I will need to go through and standardize the whole thing. Maybe replace the really janky, there's this part of filmmaking where it's all the titles and the flash stuff. I can't remember what it's called. But that stuff could, if I do get enough money, I should probably redo it and like redo the whole thing on a Netflix worthy level. So maybe I don't know if they would be interested, like some sort of like Netflix or Amazon of like taking my stuff, working with it to a professional level if it's already printed. I don't know how that stuff works, but that would be cool. This is basically the first draft of the thing, and I'm publishing it live. And I think my audience so far understands that it doesn't have to be perfect. That's the cool thing about YouTube. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I will when I do re-release it, it'll be perfected, and then I'll probably CGIN a Jabba the Hutt or two here and there. Next question. Oh, I just want to say hi to everybody who joined recently. This is Benjamin Boyce. I don't know how you would have found me if you didn't know who I was, but I'm just going to say my name anyways, Benjamin Boyce. And I'm just going to be answering questions about the ongoing documentary about my alma mater, the Evergreen State College, which is called The Complete Evergreen Story that I've been publishing. That's basically going to be all what I'm doing until I'm done with it, probably in September. And the later episode is going to be really difficult because I don't know how to film the emails. There's parts of it that are really important to do, so I have to figure out, do we want like a talking head Benjamin going through the emails, or do I have to do like that stupid ass hours and hours of work to like get like emails sliding this way and that way? Look at all these emails. I don't have those skills. But maybe I could just learn them. But like the production process will slow down a little bit when I'm going to try to have to do the whole the written data, because there's a lot of stuff in those emails really important to convey, probably boring stuff to watch. I don't know how we're going to do it. That's going to be a whole problem solving thing. But I'm not going to be really doing any other thing. Like the gender sexuality stuff's on hold. There's some really good things that I could be talking about over there. Not Jessica freaking Yaniv or Jonathan freaking Yaniv. Like I did my research on that. I did my due diligence on that stuff. Like the whole internet can like make all the videos about Jonathan Yaniv. Like it's really interesting to watch YouTube. Like, oh, here's a story that we can all eat up. But anyways, that stuff's not really important to me anymore. It was really nice to get viewed. That now those are my top viewed videos, unfortunately. Thanks JY. You helped out with the cat food for a couple months there, dude. But whatever. But there's other stuff in the gender sexuality stuff, and eventually I will compile all my gender and sexuality stuff and put it into a distilled form like I'm doing with the Evergreen thing. I think it's really important. I think there's a lot of crossover, and I think it's going to have a huge impact for a lot of people going forward. We're at the tip of that iceberg. So Bradley Jones asked, any chance of an in-depth follow-up of the students, even though assuredly they wouldn't consent to an interview? This is a persistent question. I don't want to, but I should. I'm going to have to. I really doubt that they're going to... I've come after the protesters pretty hard. Even this documentary, which has been pretty just like showing the facts, like that's pretty like they wouldn't want to talk to me because it's pretty obvious that I'm not supporting their cause because I'm showing their cause for what it is. But even previous to that, I did do a lot of criticism, and I stood up against them and their movement when it was a fresher story, and people needed to stand up against it, and there was nobody else standing up against it except for Brett Weinstein. So I kind of drew the line in the sand. So yeah, I really should do a Where Are They Now? That's a question that keeps on coming up, and it's something that I don't want to do, but we'll see about doing it, and or see about getting somebody else to do it and then publishing those. It's very important. There is another documentary that's coming out. There's 2 documentaries that I know of that are coming out. There's 3 that were in production that spoke with me specifically. I mean, Mike is somebody else. People come to me for my resources. This is the other reason I'm doing this, so I can get it out there so people can't... If people use my resources, like it's already out there, so I don't have to be selfish about it or feel weird about it. People go into print before me, so that's out of the way. But there was one person that was here right after the protests happened, that did a lot of work filming a lot of different people, but I don't know if that... I haven't heard a word from them for 2 years now. There's a second group that came here as recently as last spring that they said that they were going to try to get it enlisted into film. Okay, I said that I'm fine with being called a filmmaker, but I don't know anything about the industry. What are those things called? Festivals. So there's another Evergreen documentary that's specifically about Evergreen. They did a lot of interviews with a lot of the professors, Lisa Sweet, Zoltan Grossman. I don't know if they got Naima Lowe. They did get Shamerica, one of the lead protesters that I've named. I've allowed myself to name them because there's a lawsuit that I'll get to later, so it might as well just say their name. They're fine with it anyways. I don't think that they're worried about anything. Anyways, they have a very compelling personality, and I don't think this is going to stop them at all in their march through life. Even though, I mean, we can all say, like, oh my God, you were on film doing all this stuff. Like, for certain people, it doesn't really matter. For certain people, they have charisma. Maybe hopefully, she'll learn about it. But, like, the most recent video I found was of her studying to become a teacher through Evergreen, teaching about decolonialization and, white privilege and stuff like that. So I think like she's completely set up, not to be a failure. She's going to be successful, but to possibly instigate another terror, That's a tweet. Something like these colleges aren't so much setting up children for failure as they are for terror. That's a tweet, isn't it? So yeah, I lost my thought there. Anyways, the people who are gonna be the next documentary, they're gonna try to get into film festivals pretty soon. So that's completely about the Evergreen State College, and then there's this Safe Spaces movie with Adam Carolla that I worked with the production team on, and I think that I will end up interviewing the producer of that probably in a couple months, and that has a 12-minute segment on Evergreen that relies heavily on the resources that I dredged up and threw out into the world. So again, ultimately, all these other documentaries are really good for my work, and my work's really good for their work. So, like, we kind of feed off of each other in certain respects. But that one documentary that will be in film festivals recently, does have actual interview footage with the protesters. So maybe I should contact them, see if they have any cutting room floor stuff that I can present to you guys. That would be a good idea. That way I don't have to sit in the room with a bunch of Antifa people. I'm a complete independent filmmaker. That means I have no muscle. What you see is what you get with this guy. Anyways, talk about harassment. So, should we talk a little bit about something else? No, there's more Evergreen questions. M. Solis. Have you been able to interview any of the protesters? That's a repeat. No, I haven't, and I should. No, I haven't, and I should. The Benjamin Boys asked me a question. I love martinis. They're really good. Here we go. Feisty Rattlesnake. Dude, this is I'm always kind of sad when intelligent people don't have a avatar photo, but I'm really sad that Feisty Rattlesnake doesn't have an avatar photo. I want to see. I really want to see the Feisty Rattlesnake. Did anything happen to the chef they were screaming at? I felt so bad and demanding he get fired. He did not get fired. I don't know what happened to him. One of my commenters who's an Evergreen student, probably they seem like they're a recent Evergreen student, if not a current Evergreen student. They said that they haven't seen him. They don't see him, so he probably moved on. One thing that I don't know how to show without like me saying this explicitly, and this is an interesting challenge with this documentary. How much can I just allow the audience to tie together? And how much do I really need to make a statement about? And one thing that I need to make a statement about is that George Bridges, in conceding to the protesters, in that 4:00 meeting on May 23rd, he set the tone for the entire rest of the protest. And he gave the protesters full authority to act as outrageously as they wanted. It wasn't just his dignity that was sacrificed in that moment. It was the entire chain of command. Every single person under him that had any responsibility whatsoever about what went on at the college then had to bow down to protesters. From him to all the VPs to the chief of police to the frickin' cook in the kitchen had no legs to stand on. This man, George Bridges, betrayed everybody working there. He betrayed my degree. Now, I heard recently that he's a really good professor, but he's a shitty ass administrator. And how do I show that? How do I not just like say, look, when the person in charge gives over to the terrorists, everybody else de facto gives over to the terrorists. And that's why we don't negotiate with terrorists. This is why authority matters. It's not just you and your reputation. I don't know if he knows this or not. He completely exonerated himself. He had this independent review committee staffed with people that he's known for 30 years come through and excuse all of him. He did nothing wrong. What about all the people that suffered under him? All the people whose livelihoods are now at stake because of the failure of the college. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that nobody stands up to him. About a year ago, somebody started passing out flyers into mailboxes, like in little mail cubbyholes, like with these like posters, resign. Like on George Bridges. You know what the faculty did? They all banded together and they wrote this like email chain like, no, we support George Bridges. We support George Bridges. We can't afford to not support George Bridges. We're in a really tough situation that George fucking Bridges put us in. Like these freaking cocksuckers. It just astounds me. How ridiculously cowardly and just not thoughtful at all. You just think that a professor would be smart. Maybe some are. Maybe it's just the fools that speak up. Maybe Evergreen, the ship of fools. Because everybody else is under the brig. I don't know. Like, what the heck, dudes? It's just, I don't... anyways, to go back, I'm sorry, I'm expressing too much. I feel like I should be a lot more reserved. But this is a live stream, right? This is the live stream. This is me not being professional at all. This is YouTube. I'm just expressing myself. All my biases, all my prejudices, all of my positive discriminations. Did you guys see that? Check my Twitter feed. Positive discrimination. Check my Twitter feed. I'll put it up there. Benjamin A. Boyce. Whatever. Anyways. I just, it's an interesting challenge. How do I like say that without saying that? How do I say that artfully? How do I just like set up the conditions for like people to draw that conclusion? Irrevocably draw this conclusion. This man caused the suffering and the harassment of countless individuals. And how many, like he trotted out how much money Evergreen gives community, right? He actually trotted out because they didn't have any other selling points for Evergreen. So they went around to the local community and showed like, historically, this is how many millions of dollars we give you, right? Well, if that's true, then how many millions of dollars has he lost this community, right? Like, that's the one thing, like, why does nobody like make that freaking connection? Like, anyways, let's go on to the next question. I don't know what happened to the chef. I'm sure he quit or moved on. Grace Z asks, you've mentioned about how Evergreen's campus is literally not a safe space in terms of infrastructure. I think that's what you hinted at. Will this be addressed, detailed in the documentary? Oh, God. Okay, really shortly, quickly, I have it on like actual legal authority that Evergreen is being investigated by OSHA because there's like some actual literal safety concerns with the cool thing. You never get this in beer. You never get it like a fruit in beer. You know, like a salty fruit in beer. The thing is that Evergreen's got some deep problems with its infrastructure. It's pouring all this money into like marketing and equity and shit. When it, like the physical ground is becoming increasingly unsafe. There's problems with the water. There's problems with the steam pipes. There's all these problems. Unfortunately, that is a really big story to try to like compress down in a 10-minute video. Like that's really technical stuff. That would take me a good few weeks to actually do. And I kind of took the break from the summer and I didn't get around to the person. So maybe not. Who knows? If it pops up in the future and there's actual data on it, maybe I'll just do a appended episode, and maybe I'll mention it. Good question, Gracie. I'm just asking. I'm answering. I'm answering questions about the Evergreen State College documentary that I'm doing. If you want to ask a question, put 3 question marks in front of it, and we'll see if I get to it by the time I finish this martini. Himdall's Gate. Will Joey Gibson make an appearance in the film? I'm not going to interview the guy, but yeah, that's coming up. Totally. Maybe I could interview the guy. This is a freaking troll. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I'm not for freaking Patriot Prayer, but they just showed how freaking ridiculous the freaking liberal ass, like far left liberal ass professors were at Evergreen. Like, they brought out the crazy, right? But that doesn't mean that they are not like people that I'm kind of wary of. I'm like, technically you guys are okay, but I don't appreciate all the rhetoric and the incitement. I don't appreciate that. That's not my style. I mean, you're bringing out the crazy. I appreciate that, but I don't see a good trajectory to people who start participating in that kind of stuff. Like, what is the outcome? Like, what's the end game if that becomes a part of your personality? Like, that's the question. Like when you adopt these ideologies and they become a functioning part of your personality, like, where are they going to drive you in the end? Like, you're not violent now, but, you know, you keep on putting yourself in a situation where your instinct is to fight back. Eventually, you're going to start projecting what happened to you beforehand into the present moment. It's gonna happen. You got to be careful. I'm sorry to piss off any Patriot Prayer lovers or anything like that. I'm not saying that I'm against conservatism or anything. I'm not on the side of freaking Antifa. I just think they're all idiots. Equal opportunity idiocy. That's what I stand for. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Bite Boat Board. I love your name. Thanks for the super chat. No Privacy asked how many episodes are planned. 24 are planned. I've written it out. I have it in several notebooks. I've gone over it several times. But again, every time I actually do an episode, it changes. And then I have other stuff left over, other stuff to get to. So we'll see. 24 is my magic number. Every one of my posthumously published novels is 24 chapters. That's just something I learned from Stephen Brust, or a derivative of 24. There's some 12 chapter novels, which means that they're only half done, I guess. So 24 is my magic number. So that's just what I decided, and when I wrote it all out, it makes sense that 24 would be right, because there's a faculty evaluation and a self-evaluation at the end. Kind of like those retrospectives, you know, like back in the days, like when you watch Cheers or the Brady Bunch or any given, you know, one of those TV shows, like every season had to have like a retrospective. You know, like that was a really easy way for the writers to take a break, for the crew to take a break. You know, we're just going to splice together. You know, fuck the editor. We're just going to splice together. I mean, I guess the writers have to spring it all together, you know, but like we're going to take a day off. You know, we're going to look back. So it'll be kind of like going back through it and kind of tying together the threads for me, making my argument. Looks like, oh, geez, I don't know how long the chat's going on. I'm like an hour behind myself in the chat. Feisty Rattlesnake, do you know what happened to the chef who screamed at, oh, I already said that. Did something spring back? I think I might have messed up here. Sorry about that. What are your thoughts as to why George Bridges is still employed at Evergreen? I have documentation that he's under contract till 2021. Apparently the contract that he's under is freaking iron fucking clad. Freaking iron fucking clad. I'm sorry. Freaking iron freaking clad. So he's under contract. Like, they're not going to fire him until 2021. Doesn't matter what happens. So I don't know. I don't understand. It's interesting. I'm sure he's a great guy in certain capacities. I have a lot of negative things to say about it. Like, that's the other problem. I don't like being this negative about something, but whatever. We're going to have to go take a bath being critical of George freaking Bridges. I'm sorry. No, not George freaking Bridges. I mean, like that. Just like I yelled about George Bridges, and now I'm going to have to, like, purge my soul. I'll have to walk around the cabin 7 times with like a sage rub, like getting it all out. Like, back to the purity of the forest and the deer and the kittens and the freaking, like, dead rabbits that I find around the house that I don't put on camera because they'll probably get me flagged, and whatever other thing, the ducks or geese. Like, there's some geese from India that are in the pond next door. Is there a future for our children? Oddly enough, this has everything to do with the Evergreen story. Brentley Powell asks, is there a future for our children? Of course there is. And they'll get through it. They'll figure it out. The idiots will destroy themselves, and the smart ones who aren't destroyed by the idiots will go on, build something better for a bunch of other idiots to break down. I think this is totally cyclical. This is not the end of America. This is just something we really have to attend to. Is there a future for our children? I do think that there's some environmental concerns. I'm pretty faithful that we will adapt. I think that the market economy, for all of its flaws, and it does have flaws, does reward and incentivize innovation. And I think we have a chance to not live in a really, really bad environment. That makes me think, like, okay, so when I was a kid, I started hearing about acid rain, and like at school, I would hear all this stuff about how the environment is going to be really bad. And I remember, and this is in the 80s, and I remember the 80s, like Blade Runner. There was a lot of dystopian fiction about the, like, we're living in this like this mega citadel. In 20 years from now, we're going to be living in like this wasteland. And it didn't come true. So I think that those projections of decay and death, they're more about our imagination, or they're more about like a spiritual feeling or something under the surface that we're trying to express than actually a projection on the future. We don't really know the future. To say that our children don't have a future is idiotic, because, like, what is the future anyways but like a thought that we dreamt up, So what are you saying? Like, we're gonna finally figure out a series of conditions to end the future? Like, that's pretty difficult. I mean, albeit we do have the weaponry to do that, so it's a possibility, but there'll still be a future, just for very few children. So that's an interesting question. I'm kind of an optimist. I just think we have a lot of work to do. We need to incentivize the people who work their asses off towards good goals. That's what we need to do. We need a champion. Is this? Okay, so John Hones. Hey, John. Did you watch the show by Normandic Fanatic? Is that the French guy who basically recut Nana's documentary? I saw it, but then I just scrubbed through it. I'm like, oh, this is just repackaged Nana with a French voiceover. Am I wrong? So I didn't really get into it. Do I have time? Does he add anything to the story? Should I watch it for material, or does he just add more commentary on the story? If anybody can answer me, I don't know how I'm going to find you in all these things. Answer me on Twitter if you can. If Normatic Fanatic actually adds anything to the story other than his opinion. But I don't know. This is the problem with the medium. I wish that we could have a dialogue. I could figure out exactly what you mean, John. Lowell Benjamin, kind know what you mean. Okay. I don't know what's happened to Jameel. Capiche, put the question marks in front of the question. Dustin Hoffman of Pirate Bay. I don't know what's happened with Jameel. Last time I heard he changed his name. Okay, media content. How big of a role do you think Trump derangement syndrome plays in the event's breakdown of Evergreen? On the student front, not much. The students were just looking for weakness. They just saw it as a cause. The students in and of themselves just saw it as a cause. There's one thing that I didn't point out in episode 3. No, episode 4, whichever episode that I get into the canoe meeting. There's Felix Braffith opens it up. I should have a microphone around here. He opens it up saying, whatever happened, nationally, if we're not careful, it's going to happen on our very campus, and he's talking about like the election of Trump, which was like a week before. And actually, I don't know how, there's no freaking footage of the Trump protest, but there was a walkout on Trump, on the day after he got elected. And there was some weird stuff that happened there, but I only have unfortunately, and this is the next episode, so I need to figure out how to do this. But something happened at the day after the election of Trump, where all the students gathered, and they did this really weird progressive stack. So I don't have footage of this. I wasn't there. This is a secondhand story, but I'm going to tell it to you guys. You want to hear a story? Evergreen story? So Trump gets elected, somebody gets a microphone, and then somebody else gets a microphone, and people are just like yelling in the microphone, and then like somebody has the idea. It's like, this is progressive staff. We're centering marginalized voices. It's their turn. So some marginalized voice gets this idea to have everybody kneel. Okay, this is just a story I heard from one person. So just take this as a story, okay? This is totally anecdotal. I don't even know if this happened. Everybody kneel. Yeah, everybody kneel. Okay. Anybody who is an undocumented student or an immigrant or has illegal immigrant family, stand. Yeah, those people stand. Anybody who is of a marginalized race, stand. All people of color, stand. Anybody of a marginalized sexuality, stand. And they go through the whole progressive thing, like until everybody that's kneeling down, straight white men on the ground kneeling. I guess we have to throw in cis there, like it's Evergreen, like cis. So all the cis white men are kneeling, and then the person's like, "This is all your fault. Everybody who's kneeling needs to take full responsibility for the future of our country and the reparations that are owed to all the people who are being oppressed in the very moment by the election of a total criminal to the office of President of the United States." Now I'm totally making that up, right? Because I got into this whole radio voice. It was kind of fun. So that's what I heard. And I wish I had video of that because it's freaking insane. I do have I have photos of Naima Lowe flipping out the camera and saying that if you're a white person, you can send me, if you're a white person and you're not sending me money or burning down a cop shop, don't say sorry, don't contact me. A professor. So I have that. And then I have the protest at the Bridges building. So, Trump derangement syndrome, if it was in effect, it was in effect because all the kids were sold on that Trump was a fascist dictator, and as soon as he got into power, prison camps would be erected and we'd start persecuting babies. But which did happen, except for the Obama administration had those camps already there. And then, because Trump's in office, now we can make that an issue. Anyways, I don't want to get into that thing because I don't know enough about it. But I'm just dropping stupid jokes because I'm live and I'm not even halfway through this martini. That's a good question, media content. And I did figure out how to use the Jackson footage of what he actually said at convocation. So I will answer your question in the video. Thank you for being persistent about that. Sorry I got triggered about your content. I get really exhausted and then I post these videos and then I watch the comments and then people criticize me. I'm really exhausted and it's probably not a good thing to reply when I'm really exhausted and I just spent 14 hours on a freaking video, going over and over and over and over again. And then people show up and criticize you and you're like, fuck you. You're like, do you have any idea how many choices I've made? So I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. I should have a media manager. How are you guys doing? How long have we been talking? This is a really long live stream. People seem to be enjoying it. That's weird. We're at an hour. Tedious one. So this is Benjamin Boyce. I'm doing a live stream about the Evergreen Documentary. I'm about a third of the way through. I'm planning on 24 episodes. I just published 9 last night and the night before that because I re-uploaded it. And if you want to ask questions about the Evergreen State College documentary, put 3 question marks before the question. If it is about, or your comment, if it is about the Evergreen State College, I will try to get to it before I have to drink another martini. Tedious one says, has there been a backlash for alumni who graduated before all of this? So that's an interesting question. So there's this guy who did a video about a month ago, and it's very well-produced video. Shockingly well-produced. He's only got like 600 subscribers, though. It's really interesting. He does a video, should Evergreen College be shut down? He really enjoys my work. So if you're watching, hi. I appreciate that. Sorry, I said it's weird that you have a big production budget and a small subscriber base. I'm just trying to be clear. But he goes into, he says that somebody, Evergreen, a graduate of Evergreen contacted him and said that she has had to take Evergreen off of her resume to get jobs. She said that she's having better luck getting a job if Evergreen's not associated with her. And she was talking to him about a possible class action lawsuit. So that's the first thing that I've heard. Now, this is a guy on the internet speaking about somebody off camera. So I don't know. I do know as a fact that they shut down the Evergreen alumni page, the Evergreen Facebook alumni page. They've tried to curtail any official communication between alumnus or alumni, whatever. I get in trouble for that word. But it is a distinct possibility that the actions of the administration and the faculty have negatively affected the value of an Evergreen degree. It is very certain that anybody who is pro-Evergreen would blame me for the devaluation of an Evergreen degree. All I've tried to do is show facts, though, but Google has taken their side and has suppressed my search results. If you look up Evergreen State College on YouTube, specifically on Google search results, you won't find any videos of me, which is really interesting because I'm the foremost reporter on this. Anyways, that's a throwback to something that happened in June or May. I'm sure that once we get into the money part, that is the stuff that really scares people. Like, I can talk about the social justice stuff all I want, but once I start like poking around stuff that affects the bottom line, that's when they'll go after me. So that's when I'm going to really get in trouble. If I start getting flagged or start getting suppressed in any manner, it's when I actually get to stuff that's really sensitive about where the money's coming from and going. And it'll probably be when I get into the legislative battle, which I do have footage of. And that will be very late in the series, probably episode 20 or something. So, but that's not even your question. I totally misread your question. You asked if there was any backlash from alumni towards me. I thought was there any backlash for the alumni from these events? That's what I was answering. I haven't received anything but passive-aggressive bullshit. Actually, one of the people who I have hours of him being a complete ass on camera that I have not reported on directly, he came after me in a Facebook thread. And then he promptly deleted his comment and blocked me on Facebook. And I didn't find him particularly interesting. So I haven't really reported on him because he wasn't saying anything. He was just a more mediocre version of everybody else that was protesting. He just took up a lot of freaking time, and he eventually got hired by Evergreen. Actually, there's 2 people that are involved in the 4:00 meeting that become Evergreen staff. People in that struggle session get hired. 2 people who berated the president get hired by the administration. And I'm not talking about George. I'm not talking about the student code of conduct. I'm talking about actual positions within Evergreen. Like they become state employees, not just like little we're going to do this fake thing to appease the protesters while let them try to rewrite, the student code of conduct, sending a horrible message to everybody except that we are going to bow down to the will of freaking protesters. I don't want to get off that rail. Anyways, so he kind of came after me in a Facebook post, thought better of it because, what are you going to do? That was like one of those come at me bro moments. I rarely have those, and I don't like reveling in that kind of attitude because it just leads to bad things. But that was like one of those genuinely like, no, please, like, let's step outside. No, please, let's step outside. So I really don't think that anybody will come after me. Nancy Koppelman came after me on Facebook. And when I did an episode on her coming after me on Facebook, I deleted her name because I didn't want her harassed or anything like that. But that was just a foolish thing for her to do. And when I did an episode about her coming after me, and she said I was a shill, and she said all this ridiculous stuff about me, doing what my advertisers want to do and like selling it, biting the hand that fed me. Like she just totally went off. And me, the people that I talked to knew that we would actually be stirring up shit with the episodes that I was doing. And she broke, which is a totally bad. I'm sorry. For the people who don't know, a professor of Evergreen came after me in public on Facebook and tried to slander me and said all these totally ridiculous things about me, which are totally laughable things. Like right in public, like an actual professor. That basically proves my point that these professors are a bunch of people that should not be teaching students, or they should be acting differently. And I'm not talking about all professors. I'm just saying the ones that are acting this way should be held responsible for their actions. She comes after me on Facebook. They promptly shut down the Facebook group. The administration promptly shuts down the Facebook group, deletes the whole thing. Right? She deletes the whole thing. She gets in a little bit of trouble. She writes me this like 3 or 4 page email explaining how wrong I am and how right the administration is to hide what they're doing from the public. She writes this whole email, asked me not to publish anything about it. It's a while now. So I think this statute of limitations going. All I'm trying to say, I'm really sorry. All I'm trying to say is that I do feel kind of bad at them insofar as this is a war. This is really asymmetrical war, and this is why they kind of try to get me banned from Google, or why they've figured out how to demonetize every one of my videos now. I mean, actually, I have to submit every single video now to manual review, which is a whole other conversation. But that didn't happen until after I started going after Evergreen, and specifically George Bridges, and specifically like started really hitting them. I got really close to a very vulnerable spot. I got very close to explicitly stating exactly how the legislator would cut their money off. That's when I got all this Google flag, this pushback from Google. So they cannot come after me publicly. It's asymmetrical war. I can say whatever I want. I am not a state employee. I am a citizen of the United States. The law is in my favor. If any of them step out of line, that will only do bad for them. They, however, can go after me in a subtle, crafty way, which I'm not going to put it beyond the George Bridges administration to figure out how to do. They are pumping thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars into reputation boosting teams, not just marketing teams, but people who go around and figure out how to get you out of trouble on the internet, right? People who know dirty tricks. They are paying thousands of dollars to people who know exactly how to snuff out voices like mine. So I'm not really worried about like backlash per se. There have been rude comments on the internet. It doesn't really matter because nobody has yet made an argument against what I'm doing. Nobody has ever been able to justify what the protesters have done. Zoltan Grossman, we'll get to this. Zoltan Grossman and his cadre of people, Anne Fischel and what's her name? They tried to like say there's this other side of the story that you don't know. And then they talked about something completely unrelated to the protests, right? Students have been talking about these problems for years. What problems? What problems? Nobody is able to make a sustained, thorough argument that goes against my supposition that Evergreen was possessed by a radical ideology that destroys institutions. This radical ideology is taking root in all these other institutions. We need to recognize what it is and root it out. That is my argument. Nobody's been able to do that. So all they can do is slander me. It doesn't really matter. Nobody has an argument. And if they do, I would totally love to correct myself. I don't want to be right. That's not why I'm doing this. If anything, I just want to work. That's all I want to do. So anyways, I'm not worried about backlash. I feel like I need a break. How are you guys doing? There's nobody else talking to me. It's just a bunch of words on a screen. I'm a radio host. How do people do this? Well, the guy, the quartering, he just does this. There's so many people. Mundane Matt. He just does this. He lives across town. We have drinks every once in a while. I'm gonna take him out. Cool guy in person. And these people on YouTube that just talk and talk and talk. I don't know how people do it. Raymond Gordon. Raymond Gordon. You know what? I wish I had. Okay, I need help with this one, guys. Okay, before I get to Raymond Gordon. I need help with this. So I have the ability to, through YouTube, let people donate money to me. You know, like become like a special person. You know, you pay $5, you pay $2, $5, $10. I can set the amount, right? So I set the amount. I'm really bad at giving specials to people who follow me. Like, I just want to produce content for the masses. I don't really particularly want to do that. But I understand that I need money to do this. People want to give me money. They deserve something extra for their money. So I need to work with somebody to figure out how to do that, because my brain doesn't work in that way. But I need to figure out how to do that. Anyways, Raymond Gordon has been with me for a very long time. I don't know when he started watching, but he's like one of my old timies, like from way back, if I recall correctly. You've been around for a long time. Teddy Pal's been around for a long time. ZXY, she's been around since the beginning. A couple other people have been around since the beginning. And I wish I could just give you guys like some sort of like special little like signature for being around. So I just appreciate that you've been around. That's cool. I like popping you up with your little warrior dude as an avatar. Naima is, oh no, I can't say that. She will what impact do you think that has on her? Okay, I don't want to go down that road. I'm sorry. I'm not going to say that out loud. People who are watching can read that on the screen. I'm sorry. I'm not going to get into that. There's too much blowback when I do that. This is Bijou. Oh, and just in time. Snooze. Bijou, what do you think? You want to help me? How close is Evergreen coming to losing their accreditation? They have 7 more years before they're up for accreditation again. Actually, ironically or not, and maybe this person was just blowing smoke up my butt to get me to stop talking shit about Evergreen. But my transcript was used to prove that Evergreen is meeting its goals and is doing really great. Apparently I have a stellar transcript. The work that I did at Evergreen, like that 50-page document of reviews and stuff from all my teachers from those 7 novels that I wrote in undergrad, were really impressive and helped it get its accreditation for another 7 years. But a bunch of other things. I was just like one little tiny piece of that. It's just kind of ironic. No, they're not going to lose it. They just make up what their accreditation is. Oh, thanks for the super chat, Phil Webb. Phil Webb says, Benjamin, thanks for telling the story of Evergreen. It's difficult to watch, isn't it? But important for people to see. What cocktail are you enjoying? This is a martini. I'm almost done with this. I think I'm going to end the stream after this martini. Look at how slow I'm sipping it. I don't know the name of the vermouth. It's a little heavy on vermouth. So 2 shots of Bombay Sapphire. I was doing like really expensive gin, but like it's really expensive. So I'm just like Bombay Sapphire. And then there's like really kind of a nice vermouth in it. Kind of sweet. It's actually good. The vermouth is good just on its own, but I shake it up and it's all chilled, and then get a little salty fruit in it. Thanks for the support, Phil. Deep Purple. You've been around for a while too. Do you think the college will fail if it keeps going in this direction? I think it's going to change direction. I think George Bridges is going to leave and they're going to try something else out. I really do think that, I don't know. I really wonder who's controlling Evergreen. Like, what's really going on there? Why hasn't this man been held to account? Even if he's not fired, why hasn't he just like made a statement? Like, this is what we did wrong. This is what we did wrong. And this is what we need to fix. I mean, they've done like some bullshit, like free speech stuff. I mean, okay. people on Twitter or whatever, people don't talk about free speech anymore, but people like accuse people of like being free speech grifters or whatever. There's no college campus problems. Free speech grifters talking about free speech and trying to stop the progressive agenda by complaining about free speech, So people use free speech both to forward ugly agendas and to suppress agendas so their agenda can go through. So I don't know. They did a bunch of free speech bullshit, but they never addressed not to my satisfaction. I'm not satisfied with how they addressed the problem. But who cares about what I think? Okay. Hello. You're saving this video, right? Came in late, didn't know you were giving live. Yeah, I will save this video. I feel like I went off the rails a little bit, and I did a little bit of rantiness. Again, I was just expressing feelings. I will get back to professional stuff in my professional video series. It doesn't matter. People that want to smear me will smear me, whatever. But I just want to say that the people who like the moderate Benjamin, I'm just expressing stress, and I'm just like unwinding with a cocktail and a bright light. I got these new glasses. They're progressives. It's really trippy. But the best thing about progressives is that I don't have to put on my reading glasses, which are the wrong shape. Sorry, this is still vanity. So here's my reading glasses, but then I go out there and then I can't see anything. It turned out I made the wrong decision with these. But these are much more. They're just like they're Oakleys. I guess that's the one thing I don't like about that is that I do videos and I don't want to advertise them, even though I'm advertising them right now. But they're nice shape. I might end up getting some nail polish and hiding that. I just like straightforward, just the object. I don't like any sort of branding. Oakley's pretty wise with his branding being basically null. It just looks like an O, which is cool. I did go down to LA this past weekend, and I hung out in Santa Monica, and I went up to Malibu. And I hung out with this actress friend of mine, and I just there's this whole other thing going on down there. When I came back up to Seattle, I flew back and I had some business to attend to, and then I did some like research stuff about the entertainment industry. It's really eye-opening. Like there's a lot of like opportunity there, and there's a lot of things that I could be doing in my life with the talents that I'm, working on gaining that could lead to actually like one of those things that are like a career or something like that, like something serious. I'm 43. I still have a problem with like that. It was just really eye-opening. It was really beautiful. We went to the beach and it was just really beautiful. Some parts of it, like really, I didn't like. Like there was a lot of people who, there was a lot of women who were really like displaying themselves, and there was a lot of guys who were like displaying themselves too. And I really don't like that. I really don't like that hookup culture. I have some problems with that. Maybe eventually we'll get around to talking about it. I don't think that's interesting. That kind of like, I'm like, I don't like that. It's really distracting. And I can't really get deep, you can't be deep in that. You can't really get under the surface in a world that where surface is everything, so that's one thing that I didn't like. But it was really beautiful, and there was a lot of things that were opened up to me, and then I started really, when I got back here, I really started thinking in a new light about what I'm doing with this media content, and like how if I do start following the rules, and like bleach to hell my teeth and like, rip out the one that's crooked, which I like because it stands out. And just do some things to become like perfect in that way. Like there's a lot of opportunity out there, for me, that would lead to a really pleasant life. So I've just been thinking about that. That's really interesting to think about. But one thing I did want to say is like when I landed and I started driving back home from Seattle back to Olympia, like the feeling that I got about this area, like I liked it more. Like there was more, it was a more stable feeling for me. It was feeling it's better for my work, my personality. And I was thinking about like how overcast it is here and like how rain it is. It causes you to be inside a lot, and being inside, like for me, is better. It focuses my attention. Nobody asked about that, but I said it anyways. Matt Pitt, will Antifa make an appearance in the documentary? Antifa shows up on the Patriot Prayer Rally. We'll get to that. I don't know how people just talk and talk and talk. I don't know how they do it. How do they do it? They just talk and talk and talk. I guess they talk and talk together. That's probably a good thing. If you find the right talking partner that gives you the ability to space out for a bit, that's the problem with like talking so much. I can't space out at all. That's why I talked about LA, because I just need to talk about something else, you know? But like if you're in the right, like they're filling up the verb and then like you can like peace out. I don't know. YouTube is filled with people that do this. So it's just not a mystery. AD, what was in the proposal by the Equity Council that so many people didn't like? Okay, this is difficult. I'm probably going to have to interview Jesse Robbins. So Jesse Robbins is an alum that saw that document, and he wrote a very scathing email. He sent it to George Bridges. He sent it to the Board of Trustees. He probably sent it to a politician or two. And he breaks down the statistical ineptitude of the document and how horribly constructed the document was. There's also, I've heard from another person that large portions of this document were wholesale copy and pasted from other equity documents of other institutions and just thrown into there. The document was rushed to press the night before that event. So there's that problem with the document. The document was just supposed to outline the state of equity at college, and then outline ways that the college could better help with that or set up programs for training in that. But the document also talked about hiring practices and attempted to insert itself into the hiring process, and therefore the rehiring or the conversion process, like how one gets tenure at Evergreen. And then also it exerted directives towards making a VP. So Brett Weinstein's problem with it, if I recall correctly, was that it overstepped its charge and started to get into territory. There is this really interesting piece of audio that I have, and this is going to be a lot of work to get. And I don't know how to produce this in a way that I guess people find it interesting or they don't. But I do have a recording. This is totally only I have this recording. And who made the recording and whoever else. A year to the day before Brett Weinstein got protested, he stood up in a faculty meeting, and for him telling his story, this is when the trouble started for him. The faculty were voting on a resolution to require the faculty to talk about their development in race relations or in racial equity, every year. As a part of their self-evaluation, they have to talk about how they're doing better with the equity situation. Brett Weinstein's problem with it that he expressed in this meeting, and I have the recording of this, is that this could possibly, if you guys think about this, he says, I'm going to condense it down a little bit. If you guys think about this, this can be used to actually affect, if somebody doesn't say the right words in these documents now, like if we don't all get on board with this and all do the same work and all think the same way, I'm totally translating him or transliterate that word with him. If we don't, this can be used to implement a sort of thought policing upon individuals in our institution. We shouldn't make this a part of our hiring process. We shouldn't make this a part of our evaluation process. This will translate into money. This will translate into tenureship or whatever that tenure thing is. They call it conversion at Evergreen. Conversion. So he stands up and he makes a pretty, he makes this argument against that. For him, he traces his problems back to that date when he stood up against this one resolution. The audio is pretty fascinating. It's really bad though. So I've transcribed his part of it. It's really bad audio and I don't know how to clean that up. Like I would have to hire the FBI to do that, to clean it up. Maybe I'll get hired by the FBI someday, just transcribing shitty recordings. It's like 60% of this job, guys. It's really interesting. So I'll throw that in. I lost what I'm talking about. So anyway, so Brett Weinstein, that's when he first gets on the radar that he's an enemy of right think. But then his problem with the Equity Council document is that it's overstepping its bounds. Other criticisms of it is that it's scientifically horrible. It's like a horrible document, and I have that recording that I put on there that where the lead statistician of the college is saying that this thing is completely steeped in bias. This is biased inside and out, like confirmation bias of the way. So it's a bad document. I don't know how to make that explicit, and that's probably one of the weaknesses in the documentary. So I appreciate questions like this when I go back and retell the story, when I have all these pieces and do like the super cut or the ultra redo cut, like Francis Ford Coppola. Then maybe that's something that I can address in the Equity Council issue. But I do have time to go back. The way that I'm doing this, non-linearly, going back and forth and back and forth, I know it's confusing for the audience, and that's probably the weakness for it. And that's probably something that I'm going to err on the side of confusing people by going back and forth so much. And I'm trying to use subtitles. I'm probably not using them correctly to say this is where we are. I think it's better for the flow of it. I think it's intuitively better for me. There's arguments for and against it, I understand. But the cool thing about being open to going back in time is that I can go back as I progress and address at a different level of the conversation of video, like what these things are, what the data are. Like, I've already cut things out that would have gone good, but I'm saving them. Since the inception of the Equity Council, I have video of them just being really bad with data. Really explicitly showing all this great things happening and making that a problem. Anyways, so that's a short answer for that. And I am running out of juice. I've never had 232 live eyes on me or sets of eyes on me, so I'm going to keep on going. I wonder what you guys are doing down there. I'm stuck way the back in the past with these questions. You guys are having wonderful conversations, probably making fun of me, and I'm just over here rambling with a fallen angel by my side. Let's see, where are you? Okay. Matt Pitt asks, how much does tuition cost at Evergreen? $7,400. It's really cheap. Could you make an argument that most of the students would be considered privileged? I hate the whole argument of privilege. I hate it from the get-go. I hate it. 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 It doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't do anybody any good. I don't want to answer this question. I'm sorry. I'm triggered right now. I don't who the fuck cares if you're privileged or not? Are you a good person? Are you doing something awesome? That's all I care about. That wasn't directed at you, Matt Pitt. It was just directed at the concept of privilege. I am Benjamin Boyce, and I'm scrolling through comments. This is sad that you guys were having all these conversations. I'm looking for a question. We'll put this on here while I look for the next question. Oh, wait, hold on. Spice A. Wait, how did you do that? Spice A says, mojito. Okay. Nubber. Do you have any footage of the kid in the wheelchair? Oh, we're getting to that. Don't worry about that. We're getting to that. I have to be respectful. There's this really bad name that people call them. It's really freaking funny as fuck. There's a person in the footage in a wheelchair. I was in class with this person. The biggest bigot I have ever met. I've never sat in a room with somebody that bigoted. It's eye-opening. I guess, I'm sure that people have been around bigger bigots. That was that whole class. My last class at Evergreen. It's okay. Kill Whitey. Kill heterosexual Whitey. All right. I'm we open, everybody's going to say their pronouns. I'm really? Here we are. I mean, I had to do that at a workshop once. I didn't like it. We had to do it. I just refused. I'm like, I'm just Benjamin. And I just want to make a living text. That's the only reason I'm going to college. I'm just trying to make a book that lives and breathes. That's all I want to do with my life. I don't want to change the world or anything. I just want to create something beautiful and alive. Dances in your mind. That's all I want to do. Everybody else is like, I'm a they, I'm a thee, I'm a sure, I'm a them. Like, oh, it was interesting. That person was in this class. They were insane. Balls to the wall. I actually admire this person. I mean, I tried to tell them. I really explicitly try. I try to tell Naima. I try to tell Jamil. The thing that I have toward the protesters isn't necessarily anger. I get a little ridiculous. I'm more angry with the administration like that. I'm feeling the Martini right now, so I'm gonna have to get off because I'm gonna start getting a little loose. But the thing is, like the people that you see, like when you see them in person, and I'm sorry about this, but you could feel this dark cloud around them, and I just really want to say, it's like, you know what? I know there's a lot of pain and suffering in the world, but when you cut yourself off from other human beings, like you can rail against existence all you want. You can hate God or whatever you think of as God, existence, whatever. You can hate that all you want. In an instant, that can be changed. If you allow hatred against other people to take root inside of your heart, you damn yourself. You cut yourself off so deeply. You literally enter hell when you do that. And I saw that dark cloud just gathering more and more around this person. And it's just like, you can yell at me all you want and say fuck you and make fun of me all you want, and I won't do anything. It doesn't matter. Look at what you're doing to yourself. Furthermore, as a ringleader, look at where you're leading other people, right? You're leading other people. That's where I start okay, it's one thing for a person to do that to themselves. When you start leading other people in that direction, that's when I start getting a little critical. That's when my wheels come off, and I don't feel bad calling people out about that. I feel sympathy and I feel bad for people who are putting themselves in that situation. My anger takes root when they start affecting other people, and not necessarily hating other people, but leading other people down the road of hate. People can make arguments about conservatives or conservative-ish people doing that too. So, I mean, that's just universal. I don't know why I brought in conservatives of that. I was just hearing all this weird Twitter criticism in the back of my head. This is not about Evergreen. What is a martini? And what's your favorite martini? Martini is 2 parts gin, 1 part vermouth. There are other kinds of martinis. You can see that my tobacco use takes root in the fingers that I'm showing the camera. Martini is 2 parts gin, 1 part vermouth, and there's a bunch of other things. That was the original one, and then he just janky with it. I do a little extra vermouth because I like it. I should probably get off really soon, guys. I need to cook dinner and relax because we're getting into trouble time. Peter Dinklage shows up, says the Duke Tumwater. Hey, you're from Tumwater. Interesting. Do you think that the reference to white forms of knowledge is a tacit admission of racial differences in cognitive function? Huh. So in the Complete Evergreen Story, episode 8, I believe, there's a discussion between Brett Weinstein and protesters that happens after the 4 p.m. meeting. And one person who, and I'm sorry about this, but they sound white to me. They sound like a white person. They sound like a white ally. And I'm just talking about just the tone, the physical attributes of their voice and their manner of diction. Just seems white to me. I'm not saying them that they're more or less intelligent. I'm not doing it. I'm just saying that I perceive them as a white person just by listening to them. Really good with voices, whatever. This person says to Brett Weinstein, Brett's talking about 1491, and he's talking about something, and the guy gets really upset and angry and frustrated. Says, "I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you need to stop demanding that people use logic stop demanding people to use logic and reason and white forms of knowledge to prove yourself to the world. I'm messing up that quote, but they say logic and reason and other white forms of knowledge or white forms of knowledge to prove yourself to the world. I will get to this video. I have video of my first professor talking about white science and white art and white history. And yeah, white art, white history, I get it. White science, though. Like, that bigotry is right there. The same people who tout out this horrible idea, it might make sense. I can see how it makes sense to some people. It's horrible marketing. Once it gets out into the public, this will only be used for bigotry. Like this highfalutin idea that you had, like white knowledge, white forms of knowledge, right? Might make sense when you're removed in your ivory tower and you're just looking at things from a perspective. I can see that white culture, or like culture as it is embodied by Americans who are mostly white, does have a certain distinctive characteristics. I understand that. And I understand that those characteristics lead to views of the world, views to action, views to behavior. I understand that. I understand there are different cultures. I understand that, right? But when you construe the characteristics of somebody with this special form of knowledge called logic and reason, what you do is you say, once you construe that, the problem with that is that you're tacitly saying they don't intend to say this, but they're saying that only whites have access to this knowledge. That comes at a cost. But their gambit is that, yeah, logic and reason, white forms of knowledge, because only whites have access to that. Whites don't understand the oppression knowledge. It's like these silos of understanding. It's very postmodern. Helen Pluckrose, James Lindsay, they get into this quite a lot. Epistemological standpoint theory, right? I have authority over my position. Every group has authority over its position. The problem when you section off logic and reason, what you're implicitly saying that only white people, and probably Asian people, but only South Asian people or Southeast Asian people, only those Japanese people and only the people who actually can, it's horrible. It's really horrible. Like what I'm not saying this. Stefan Molyneux and these people agree, right? Richard Spencer and these people agree. White people should have their thing. Everybody else should go somewhere else. Horrible idea. Everybody has access to logic and reason. Some of us are better than others. I don't know if that has anything to do with race. I don't care. I think that's a red herring, right? I don't want to get into that argument. I'm saying some of us are wired for that, and I'm not. I'm not wired for that. I probably am or not. I don't care for it. I get really bored with it, whatever, right? But that and there's different sorts of cultural competencies. Some of us have better emotional intelligence. I have a high emotional intelligence. When I'm interviewing somebody, I'm sorry, I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just using myself as an example. When I'm interviewing somebody, I'm able to give them my attention in such a way that they open up and they relax, right? And that comes from me really being sensitive to their mannerisms. I'm really sensitive when I'm speaking with somebody. That's why I don't speak with people in real life. I don't open up with people because I don't like hurting people. I don't like being mistaken, it's a lot. It's really exhausting work because I get so much information out of somebody and I'm able to process that. That's really good for interviews. It's really bad in other situations. It's a cost benefit analysis, whatever, right? And then certain sorts of cultures set us up for certain sorts of expectations and certain sorts of drives and certain sorts of performances, right? When we start to assign people based on their skin color, based on their race, propensities towards cultural attitudes, propensities towards success in certain forms, right? And then they don't succeed in that way, or we excuse it away. We're denying them the core aspect of somebody discovering how to flourish and proceeding to do that under hard conditions. If you want to get ahead in life, you have to find hard conditions. If you suffer hard conditions all your life, it's going to make really hard for you to excel Not all of us have the ability or the chance or the luck to excel. I'm not selling excellence. I'm not going to sell excellence. Excellence is an elitist thing. Not all of us can get there. That's fine. That's okay. We don't need to be envious of the people who are excellent. The people who are excellent, their excellence is only excellent in relation to everybody else. So they need to be humble and they need to pay it back. And they need to figure out how to use their excellence in the service of other people. I think that's how the system all works, right? Where we don't envy each other, but we all find our own places. But we all have to suffer. We all have to really dig in our heels, work really hard, get shit done, do something awesome with our lives, and work on being nice and open to other people and seeing them not just as a collection of characteristics, but as this is why religion works. Because when you posit that there's a God, right? When you just posit that there's a God that created everybody, when you look at other people, you say that you are created by God and I'm created by God, right? We all come from something much higher than us, right? So I'm going to focus on the highest part of you that I can see. And hopefully that will manifest the highest part of me, right? I'm not saying you have to believe in anything. I'm just saying that when a society starts to look through the lower parts of people, and the lowest part of somebody is their physical characteristics, and starts to adulate and to stress and to focus on the highest aspects, the subtlest aspects, the most gracious aspects of somebody, that's when we have not utopia, but the possibility of a harmony, of cooperation and effect and inventiveness and awesomeness that is unparalleled in any other form of life. That's when we truly unlock the human potential, when we're focusing on that potential and not focusing on the lowest aspects of us and all that oppression bullshit. Anyways, I really need to stop talking. I wish I could hang out. I wish I could hear all your voices. I wish I could answer all your questions. I want to thank Andreas for the super chat, and I will answer your question. Do you have any thoughts on how the Evergreen situation could have been stopped, knowing what you know now? I should end on this. But before I end on that, I just want to thank all the super chatters. Thank you, Robin. Thanks for all you do. Thanks, Robin Rickard. Thanks for the super chat. And thanks, Nathan Danner. And tune in, drop out. You have a question too. How much further are you going with the Evergreen expose? 24 episodes. What are you going to do to tie this all the nonsense to the Frankfurt School? Joan of Arc, I can't thank everybody. I'm running out of steam. I'm really sorry. Thanks, Sluggo 2014. Thanks, NZ Tasha, and everybody else. If I missed you, thank you for support. I've had some very wonderful people that go to my paypal.me/Benjamin Boyce and given me some really great donations for this work. This stuff is taking up a lot of time. I appreciate people who are financially supporting me. That's really excellent for me and shows me the potential of following through on my work. So I just want to give you guys a shout out. And then I'm going to answer Andreas, super chat. Do you have any thoughts on how the Evergreen situation could have been stopped, knowing what you know now? How could it have been stopped? In 2015, when when George Bridges came on and all these workshops started happening, I was on camera. There's footage of me in these meetings where people are saying, "This I believe." White people just need to believe students of color when they speak. We don't have to do anything but believe. This I believe. When we don't confront white forms of science, we are leading white people to their unearned privilege, whatever, like all that stuff. Like when I was there, I'm like, holy shit. What the fuck are you guys talking about? But more importantly, where is this headed? Where is this going to go? I think developmentally. I spent a lot of time in preschool. I've seen a lot of children grow, right? So I always think like, okay, here's an idea. Where does it go? Like, where does it go? How does it develop? Like when everybody starts believing, how does it go? And I'm like, this doesn't go anywhere. I started writing about it. I wrote, I wrote something. I'm like, you guys really check it out. I wrote to George Bridges and I can't find this freaking email. I specifically wrote George Bridges and I said, you guys really need to think through this privilege stuff. I don't think it adds up to anything good for everybody. I don't think this adds up for anything good for everybody, right? I said something, and then I said, and you need to ask your staff to know how to use a mic, because Felix was like walking around with the mic over here and smacking, and anyways, I made a little joke, but they completely ignored that. They completely ignored me. Everybody ignored me. Some students, I posted that. Some students were like, yeah, this is weird. Like, we had a discussion. The professors came on and sent me links to like feminist wiki. Like, seriously, a professor, instead of arguing with me, sent me links to feminist wiki to go research intersectionality and white privilege. Like, what the fuck? You're like, what the fuck? And then the whole year leading up to the protest, I'm like, what are you guys doing? And I kept on talking to administrators and to personnel. I'm like, what are you guys doing? So I don't think that there was any way to stop it. I do not think that there was any way to stop it. I think that at Evergreen, Evergreen was already too far gone. I think we didn't really understand what the problem was. I really didn't think we had an Evergreen to look at before Evergreen happened. That's the thing. And that's why I'm still telling the story 2 years later. I don't think we had an Evergreen. And I think Evergreen is the Evergreen of this situation. And Evergreen's like a music machine. Like there was this Christian record or album that I used to listen to way back in the day, way back in the 80s. I think it was published in like 78 or something. It was called The Music Machine. And there was like this music machine, like no contraption that you'd ever seen. And you put something in and then a song comes out, right? Like you put something into Evergreen and it manifests, right? Like it's modeled on the human imagination. It's modeled on the human mind. That's why I love it. It's modeled on my mind. You put something in, you don't know what's going to come out, right? So what Evergreen did was it took this set of ideas and it processed them and then it spat them out in their complete excrescence. Evergreen did us all a huge service. This model of education is incredibly important and powerful and needs to be maintained and needs to be put better ideas into. Better ideas need to go through it, right? And output things. Anyway, so if Evergreen had the example of Evergreen before it did what Evergreen did, maybe it would have been stopped. But there's a lot of things stacked up. When an institution starts to get taken over by these individuals wielding this ideology, what is the outcome? It won't always be like Evergreen. It won't always be as drastic as Evergreen. It will eventually hurt the bottom line. It will always hurt the product. It will result in an inferior product being produced. People who go along this diversity, equity, and inclusion route, and I know they're great ideals, and I'm not saying that we don't need to work on like seeing the best in each other and lifting up people from different groups. I'm not against that. What I'm against is this whole set of ideas that's masked under equity, inclusion, and diversity. When that set of ideas takes over an institution, it eventually starts to marginalize everybody who's excellent. It marginalizes and targets everybody who's excellent because it runs on resentment. And people first, they start to resent systems of power, and then they start to resent things closer and closer and closer to them. And they start to represent individuals that they're with. Once resentment takes hold, even if it starts over this patriarchy system, like if you look at modern feminism, and I'm sorry if there's any critical feminists that are working in this, I really do think that insofar as feminism based on itself as against masculinity, what it did was result in a bunch of men pretending to be women to gain that power. What it does is it incentivizes, it focuses, resentment focuses on the surface, and it starts to target individuals, and then it starts to target everybody who's exceeding, and then people who don't exceed see that they are going to be seen as not exceeding, and so they're going to start to pluck out and target people and marginalize people so that they don't get so that their output, like their excellence of output, isn't considered so much. Because if you can stress characteristics, nobody will really look at the work, right? And, a company that's really profitable can take so much of that and can like avoid firing people who are doing bad work because they're in these different categories that would then lead to more of a headache. But eventually it starts to suffer. What starts to take the hit are all the excellent people and then the excellence of the product. And inside of schools, the product is the mind that leaves the school. The product of a school is the thinker that leaves the door, right? So schools, and they are wholesale. They are wholesale. Like large parts of American education are taken over with this and taken over by this. It might not result in a big blow up. It might not result so much in all these big old protests, but it's going to result in resentment, and it's going to result in resentment politics, and it's going to result in the desecration or the devaluation of the output of the degree. And they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit because all these students are taking out college loans, so they don't know what they're getting. They're being sold a false bill of goods. This is fucking educational malpractice. Nothing less. Nothing less. These sets of ideas that the academy produced are producing a horrible academy, are rotting the academy inside out. So how do we stop that? We laugh at it, we mock it, we some of us do that, but don't go overboard with that. And we detail, we figure out ways to counter this. We figure out ways to make strong arguments that appeal to people's emotions, right? But go beyond that, because this set of ideas appeals only to people's emotions. And then once people start thinking about it, it has all these arguments to shut down critical thinking. What's critical theory is a set of arguments to shut down critical thinking. Like white fragility and all these Kafka traps and all these different weird little argumentations are there to keep you on an emotional level. I was talking about this with one of my commenters, somebody I'm just going to throw out things. I'm sorry if these are wrong. So the brain isn't really developed fully until you're 25, right? And what does that really mean? It's like that the high reasoning cognitive functions that take a step back from stimulus, that which is most distant from stimulus, takes the longest to develop, right? It takes a long time for that distance from stimulus to accrue. And it's really important that it takes a lot of time, because we really have to be rooted in reality, or else reality is going to catch up with us. So that perspective on reality has to be really rooted on reality, so it keeps focusing on reality, right? And then only daydream so much, right? I mean, we're all daydreamers. But so what I'm saying is that somebody who's 18, 19, 20, 21 is still operating more or less on a lower level of consciousness. Their reasoning capacity is not fully developed. That is precisely why college is there, is to speed up the development of critical thinking. All of this diversity, equity, inclusion, grievance study stuff is all emotional. It's all at a lower level of the human being. It all operates on a feeling level, and you can look at it in the way that they behave and the way that they speak. And even though they're using all these intellectual-esque terms, if you look at what they actually do, is that they're shutting down critical thinking. They keep you returning to the emotion. So literally, it's educational malpractice. Education is supposed to develop your brain. This is a set of arguments and behaviors and practices that stop you from developing that part of your brain. So no wonder that these college kids act this way, purely out of emotion. Jeez. I really need a break, guys. I'm going to take off. You guys have a great day. Thank you so much for chiming in. This video, which is 2 freaking hours long almost, will be live. I'll keep it up for a while. Maybe I'll go back to it. And if somebody ends up watching it and says, you should take that down, maybe I'll edit it down if I did say anything that's wrong. Because, I'm against cancellation, but I have to be aware that, people are watching me, which is a weird feeling. Anyways, you guys are great. Don't be bigots, but don't be scared of people who go around call you bigots either, right? Just be cool, be chill, be nice, be good. Let's go.